Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I think we can just start with the introductions. Mm, So let me just brief on what Divide Cafe is all about. We started this platform to connect dreamers, and we believe that it's important to help people to connect with their dreams. And passion meets purpose is our calling, and we strive to connect dreamers throughout the world. We aspire to build a network of social relationships by motivating and inspiring people to the stories of dreamers who have achieved their dreams, to the choices they made and the paths they paved. So this is this whole thing about Divide Cafe. What we have realized is a large majority of people struggle to find our true purpose and live a meaningless life. We long to do something, but we are not unable to do due to several reasons. So, what we have done is we have created a program called Divided Your Dreams, which aims to give the necessary push in the right direction. Because more often than not, we are hesitant to take the first step. We wish to create a ripple effect that will help you move forward and endeavor your goals. So this is this platform that we have created where the you are on a journey of self discovery to discover one's true self, and every week we are bringing in a few dreamers who have done something different. And this week we have Kavi Prasad. uh, that's how he is currently known. Together 15, 16 years back. Today, he's a lyricist, and he has worked with renowned composers like Jerry Amaldev, Vidyadharan Master, Perubavu G. Ravindranath, and he has penned stories, poems, dramas, etc. in the past. And he is today writing a script for a full length movie. Interestingly, he left his full time job and a very senior at a very senior position, and he started to pursue his dreams. And he left his job in 2017 so that he can switch back to literature and focus more on creative writing. And that's what he does today. He is definitely a person who has achieved many accolades. And if I have to look at the international level recognition that he has received for his works, that is Jack Smythe Award for Discovery, the most outstanding program during URTI Radio Grant Awards 2017, where he did a radio docudrama. And then he has national level recognition for a short script, Jeevanilekula Aa Suvarna Nimishanga. And that's he was selected for All India Radio to represent India. And then he has won state level recognitions. So he's a person, an amazing person. Being worked with him for a few years, I know what capability he has. And today he works as a director of operations in Travancore Analytics, and has a company of his own where he is the managing director, and the company name is Depute Anywhere. So this person is, even though he has pursued his dreams, he has achieved lots in his life. And we are going to hear his story on how he moved from an engineer to a lyricist. Over to you, Neha.
Uh, Good evening, everyone. We're very honored to have you with us, Prasad ji. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and engaging with us in our session. So, before we start with our question and answers, would you like to tell us about how you got here, your story from your perspective? We would really like to know.
Okay, thank you, Vinesh, for the nice introduction. Um, and yes, you're right. It would be good to start with a story, but I have to warn you that storytelling is something that I like. So also, I mean, being on spotlight or sitting in a kind of hot seat like this, these are things totally new to me. I've never done this before. So whenever people are asked to do things that they are unfamiliar, there's a natural tendency to stick to what you are comfortable with now. So I am more comfortable with storytelling. So it can go to any level. So please, keep watch on that. So if you find me taking too long, if you find me getting a bit boring, or if you find me getting emotional in all the situations, please step in and bring me back to track. Okay. I would like to explain what happened in my life. Okay, the story part of it. In order to understand, am I audible? Is it okay? Is everything okay? My voice is okay?
When you look at the screen, it's audible, but when you look away, it starts fading.
Okay, then I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Uh, so, in order to understand the journey better, we have to start from where I started. I have to say a little bit about my childhood. I was born in a middle class family as a third son of my parents. I'm the youngest among three brothers. I don't want to go into class definitions and all, but by middle class we normally use the term to indicate that we were neither too rich nor too poor, which was true. But actually, though I was born in a middle class family, I was brought up in a poor family. This is a reality. I was brought up in a poor family, the same family, but something had changed by then because actually we had some land and we used to have rubber plantation in the land. I will not make it that long. I will quickly come to the points. We had rubber plantation. So one problem with rubber plantation is that when the trees grow up, when they are old enough, we have to cut them off and then we have to replant them. So there's a period of unproductive years. So it will take some 6 to 7 years for the new plants to grow big enough so that they can yield latex. So that means there's a time of unproductive years. So this was the only source of income for us. Usually, when people have lot of land, what they do is they will split into two parts, and one part they will replant, and the other plant they will continue to cultivate, something like that. But we didn't have that much land. So in short, we had a period of about 6 to 7 years with absolutely no income. I have to mention this because there are some life lessons also from it. So I saw poverty, and I still remember. I will cite one or two examples from those days. I still remember. I was too young. I was an innocent child that time. There was a Vishu day. In Vishu, we used to have a feast, and we used to have sadhya. We used to have paisam, and also there was nothing on that. I mean, there was a usual meal, but there was nothing special. I was surprised. I asked my mom, what is going on? Why don't we have this usual sadhya? What is going on? Today is Vishu. Then she said, then she didn't say anything. Then I said, at least why don't we have a paisam? Why don't we have the what is that, the dessert? We owe it. I mean, this is something you owe me this. Then she said, no, your mom's great uncles, some distant relative died this year, so we don't have Vishu this year. No, it's a custom that we are not supposed to have any celebrations this year, something like that. As an innocent child, I believed in her. But later, after many years, I realized we were not in a position to have any celebrations that year. Her only priority was to make sure that I don't starve that day. So that was the reality. And actually, we had a cow. That's how we managed. There was no upset. My father was an agriculture. He still is. I mean, he still loved doing farming and other things. He in his 80s, he's still healthy, and he's still doing farming. So my mother, a housewife. So we did, and my brothers, we all three were studying. So we had no other income. So we were relying totally on that cow. I still remember that cow I remember the color, and I still remember that there was a channel of tears always running. I think it's the same for all cows. A channel of tears always comes. So I used to ask my mother, why is it crying? I mean, why is it crying like you? I mean, is it by nature all mothers cry and things like that? And that used to make my mother cry even more bitter. All these things I still remember. My point here is, I mean, but I used to learn many things from her. She and both of them. My parents were able to take us through all these tough times. Probably I might have learned a lot of lessons from them on financial management. Now, when I look back, I don't usually think about all these things. But when I am asked to come here and talk about all these things, I spent some hours just before joining you. I spent a couple of hours thinking about what I should say, and I thought about all those days. Probably I felt maybe I learned a lot of lessons from them. For example, now every company, including my company and also Travancore Analytics, in which I'm going as a consultant, we are all struggling. We have business dip happening everywhere, but not we haven't cut pay. We haven't introduced pay cuts for anyone. We are still paying everyone, and we don't plan to do that either. We are managing with the limited resources, even with business which we are managing. So I hope maybe there are some lessons which I learned from my childhood. Also, I have to mention also about my father. I always used to go after him. I mean, during my childhood days, I always used to go after him, checking with him what he is doing and things like that. Because I was the youngest, so I also, so sometimes he used to he was found missing one day. I mean, daytime I did not see him. The next day also I did not see him. Then I thought he was missing, as if he was working somewhere. But I know he's an agriculturist. I checked. I looked for him in our land. He was not there. He was missing. Then I asked my mother where he left. Then there was no answer. Then I looked for him. And then I found that he was working in my neighbor's land. Then I went to him and I asked him what you are doing, things like that. Then he said, no, I'm helping our neighbor. He needs help for agriculture. So he was doing something like cleaning the land, digging. He was making a pit and things like that, for planting something. I don't remember. Yeah, there was also rubber plantation, I think. So he was doing some work like that. So I asked him what you were doing, and he said he was helping. Then on that evening, I found the neighbor helping my father back. I found him paying money. So then I realized I had grown up, or I was big enough. I had grown up to an age to realize that, he was paying him. So I had that in mind, that any paid service is not a help. So I realized that it was not a help; it was work. So I that was the first time I saw someone working under someone. These things are important. We will touch upon all these points later on, though it may look like silly things in the past. These things are important. So that's the first time I saw someone working under someone. That word "under" is double quotes. under someone. I learned a lot of things from that. My father probably, I don't know why he was hiding it from me, that he was probably, I don't know, some false pride or something like that. But he worked as a daily wage, for daily wage he worked, and then he was paid. Then I realized for working, you will get, so I understood about the positive parts of it. I mean, you will get paid. If you work, you will get paid. So when you are in need of money, you can go and work. So that's one lesson I learned. I was a very small child. No, not that small. I'll come to that later. But I realized those things. And then in order to work, you are losing something. You are losing the time you can spend with your child. Your son will look for you. You are losing your time with your family. You are losing your fun time. You are kind of selling yourself to someone. You are giving your time and your effort, everything to someone, and he is paying you back. So such lessons were taught on that occasion. And I told my father, okay, it was one evening that I found him getting bed. I told him that I'm coming the next morning. Then the father asked me, no, why do you come in the morning? Then I said, I also want to work. Father said, no, you are not supposed to work. Then I said, no, why shouldn't I work? I want to work. And I also want to make money. He still is, like I said, he still is such a great personality. My father is such a great personality. Many times he never said, he hates saying no to me. Probably because he was so confident in me on all my decisions, but he let me work with him actually for money. I still remember I was getting 10 rupees a day and he was getting 30 rupees. It was in 80s. I'm talking about 80s, 1980s. I don't exactly remember the right year, but I started working in 1980s as a daily wage to my neighbor. I used to clean the land and I used to cut small plants and I used to take small pits and things like it, mainly agriculture related work only. It continued for some days things went like that. And one more thing I want to, so maybe like the lessons I learned from that all related to work. What is work? What do you lose by that? What do you get by that? All those things were learned. Another one more instance I want to cite here is that I had only. I mean, I don't want to create sympathy or anything. I felt these are important to explain the journey. I don't know, for some reason I felt it is important to spend some time on how it all started. It's very important to understand the journey. I had only one pair of dresses. I had only one shirt and one boxes. I had only one shirt. I don't know how many of you have realized the importance of imposing a uniform in a school. I don't even know the age group of you. I don't know how many of you have probably thought about it. Why is it important to have uniforms in a school? There are many advantages. You can quickly say something like it's important to identify. It is quite easy to identify if a girl is missing from the uniform. We can quickly identify which school this student belongs to. There are many advantages, but one big advantage is that there is a feeling, and that is one of the main reasons why this was imposed. There is a feeling of equality among students. I had only one thing, only one dress and one shirt, and I used to wash it every evening after coming back from school. I used to wash it every evening, and naturally, maybe it is raining, and also in the night we may not get enough time to make it completely dry. So in the next morning, it will be somewhat wet. So I had to walk close to 3 kilometers to reach my school. So I will wear it on and then no buttons, and then I will run for the first 1 kilometer like a Superman flying with his wings. And after 1 kilometer, it will become dry, and then I will walk a little bit. Will allow some time for the sweat to get settled in, and then nothing. But I mean, I am not saying that these were big things or anything like that. But that was the way of life. That is how it was evolving, and all these things generally wanted me to that helped me in defining some life goals in those ages. My goal was very simple. In those days, it was a general belief that the primary objective of getting educated, the primary objective of going to school and getting educated was to get a good job and earn money. I know even now still millions, even billions of people in the world believe so. I don't go by that at the moment, but that's how it was a general belief those days. I also was thinking the same line. We having all this. So my point earlier, all the summary of all the points I mentioned earlier was that I knew what poverty was. I felt it. I saw it. I touched it with my hands. So I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to help my, like any other child. I wanted to help my parents. I saw my parents struggling, so I wanted to help my parents when I grow up. So I wanted to study well. So this is the conclusion. I wanted to study well, and my only life objective was to study well, get good education, learn. Study as much as I can, go to whatever extent I could, whatever extent possible, get a good job and earn money. This was my very simple, life mission statement. So at that point of time, if I get good job and good money, some good salary job, then it's like my life goal is accomplished. It was one part of me believing. So luckily, I was good in studies. I was a topper in class. No big thing, but luckily it was so. So it was going on like that in school days. It was going on like that. So parallelly, there was another interesting development going on. When I was in sixth standard, I still remember those days. I was in sixth standard. We were all there was one period in which the teacher was on leave. So all children were kind of making chit chat, making all noise and all. Then the headmistress came, and then she let all the children go for play. I mean, you can all go to the ground and you can play. That was a usual custom. When teacher is not available, they let us go play. That is better. Otherwise, we make a lot of noise. So we were all happy and we were going out. Then she asked. It was headmistress, so she was not she was not familiar with all students. Then she asked, "Who is Prasad?" Then I said, "No, it's me." Then she said, "You come with me." I was so upset. I was unhappy. I was not sure why she was calling. And she asked me, "Okay, you go to the garden, sit there for some time and come back with a poem." I was so disappointed and I was surprised that she was out, because she did not let me go play, and she was asking me to write a poem. It surprised me a lot. I was like, from my eyebrows and my look and everything, she realized she could read all my questions. Then she said, "No, we have this youth festival coming. So we need someone to represent this school." It was a UP school, LP and UP. So we need someone to represent the school for literary activities. So you come back with a poem. Then I was surprised because I did not realize. I never until that moment, I never saw me as a poet or something. Then seeing my confusion, she said, "No, I think I asked, how can I write poem or something like that." Then she said, "Don't apply too much intelligence. Don't make it too much poetic or something. Make it very simple." And I still remember the example she gave. She gave me an example. I'll make it very quick. It's in Malayalam, but I will translate also. Probably people from Kerala would find it funny. The example she gave me was, "Kaka bari vannu, para mel irunnu. Kaka bari poi, para bakiyai." That means a crow just flew in and it sat on a rock and then it flew away. And only the rock was left. What is so poetic in it? Then I asked her, she said, "Yeah, that's how. There is nothing poetic in it. So you should write something simple like that." I wrote something. I don't exactly remember what exactly it was, but it was interesting. It was interesting for me. It was surprising for me. It was interesting for the teacher also. There actually started a journey. Actually, probably when I look back, I think she also taught me a lesson on that day. Maybe the so-called Chinese proverb, like a long journey starts with a single step, something like that. She persuaded, she somehow forced me to sit there, think. I also sat on a rock like like that crow, and then I went back with a poem, which was something like some rhyming words, and it was good. And then the growth curve was like real good, like the corona cases shooting up in America. New poems asked for new poems written, and I was representing the school, and I was lucky enough to get prizes also. And I even represent in the coming years. I even represented the school in the state youth festival also, and I was getting prizes. It was a time of pride and glory as a writer. So these two things, like the left and right brain, as we call it, like the art and technology, it's called the left brain dominant people and right brain dominant. In my case, I always had the problem of dual personality. I think nothing was dominant in me. I always used to say both was dormant in my case. So something like a writer in me on one side, and also a career aspirant, or an educational, or something like that, or a career aspirant on the other side. So these two persons were developing inside me, and there was no conflict until the age of 15, when I passed my 10th. Because I could do both. I could study well, at the same time I could write, and I was getting people were encouraging me from the school. Was also there was encouragement, and people were encouraging me. But after 10th, a conflict started, because I had to decide on which way I should go, because after 10th we should choose it. In those times it was pre-degree, not +2. So pre-degree 2 years just before the degree. So I had to choose whether to go for science subjects, like +1. Sorry, first group was for engineering, maths. I was good in maths actually. So it was like a normal, natural tendency, or natural. It was like a natural obligation to go for first group. It was like that in those days. Like I said, generally everywhere in the family, in the village, myself, it was a general belief that if you are good in maths, or if you can manage, you should go for first group or second group. For some reason, I don't know how it is now, but for some reason, all other people had all those false beliefs in their mind in those times, like you have to be either an engineer or a doctor or something like that, like other professions are like inferior or something like that. So it was like a social obligation to go for first group and then choose an engineering career. But I really had lot of conflict in my mind, because it was very hard for me to choose first group, because my other half was, not in the literal term. One part of me was forcing me to choose third group or fourth group, because if I go for such a thing, I can focus more on my writing. I can probably become a teacher also. Or I don't know, maybe I can write more. I can learn Malayalam a lot. I can maybe I can, then after that I can go for BA Malayalam, then MA Malayalam, then literature, some PhD or something like that. There were too many options like that, or to go for engineering and science. So this was a tough question for me, for a small child, for a kid of 15 years. It was like a conflict between the heart and the brain. Heart was kind of wanting to write, and my brain was saying, no, you will not survive. You have seen, by that time our financial position had improved, like the rubber cultivation, it improved. We did not have that much poverty, but still it's a natural tendency to go for a high earning job. So I decided to go for first group, and I chose for first group, and then I completed my pre-degree, and there also I used to write. So until the age of 17, I used to write a lot. Even when I was going for pre-degree, I used to write really a lot. In university level, I was getting kind of good support, and I was getting awarded, and I also managed to, I mean, all these are a little embarrassing to say all these things, but I also managed to get a Vairopalli award. It's not a, now when I look back, it's not a small thing to be awarded like a Vairopalli award. It's an award in the name of a very, very renowned poet in Kerala. So at the age of 15, just between 10th and +2, I got this award. So it was really different. I mean, it was, I really made a mark in writing, for sure. Looking at me as a third person, I mean, taking a different view, I can really say I had really made my mark in those ages. So, but I had to choose engineering career, and even at +1 and +2, I during pre-degree also I wrote, when I present some poem during my if I bring my poem to class. For my Malayalam class, the teachers will stop that particular day's lesson, and they will teach my poem, and things were like that. But everything came to a standstill. Everything met with a full stop the moment I landed into an engineering college. After +2, I wrote an entrance examination, and I stepped into an engineering college. And it was like a full stop with a bang. I stopped my writing completely. I don't know if any of my not colleagues, my classmates. I had put this meeting link as my status. Some of my classmates was asking for timing, and also some of them might have joined probably if they are listening to this. Probably Sushil and Roli, you can recollect. None of my classmates, they were not aware of my writing background, and when I restarted it a few years back, they were taken aback. I mean, they were really surprised to see me doing all this, because this particular phase of me was never known to them, known to my classmates. So everything was fully stopped, and then after 4 years of engineering, at the age of 21, I switched to a career. I found a job in Cochin. Then I started working, and then I worked for major companies like Nest and all. And then after some years, I switched to Tata Elxsi. Tata has two engineering companies. One is Tata Consultancy, and the other is Tata Elxsi. This is more of an engineering software company. I was doing really great there. I was enjoying my work as an engineer, and my career-wise was also, I should say, I was a very successful engineer. I should say that with pride, actually. I was doing really good, and I was in some years I was deputed on site in Germany. In 2006, I was deputed on site. I was managing a team, and I was managing some clients in Germany. And this trip to Germany actually changed my life. So now we can switch to the dream, and I will make it very short from now on. I will switch to this. What made me think about quitting? What made me think about going back to writing and things like that? Before that, let me take a short break and ask you. I was audible until now, right? Neha, is everything going okay?
Yes, everything's audible.
Thank you. Thank you. You have to step in. You have to step in. Okay, whenever you wish to. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It won't take much long before we step into questions and all. Okay. So I will quickly come to the climax. Okay. Okay. So when I was in Germany, I realized that by the time I had completed about 7 or 8 years in Tata Elxsi. So altogether, it was like some 14 years or so as an engineer in my career. I had stopped my writing very long back, so it was a very long. But so I felt I realized that I was lacking something. I was not sure what exactly it was. I could not really visualize what exactly it was. But I really felt, I was sure that I was missing something. Then I thought something from the job. I mean, it's true in every relationship, any kind of relationship. After some time we feel like, what are we getting from this and things like that, and then we should kind of do something purposefully to rekindle it, and then keep it attractive and things like that. Then I felt maybe I've been working with Tata for so long, and it is not interesting any longer. But even then, I did not realize what I was really missing. And on one day, I found an interesting article while I was browsing. I found one interesting article about it was a survey actually. It was a survey on it was an HR related article and a related survey. The survey question was this: what makes you cling, or what makes you continue with the company? It was a general column on employer-employee relationships. I was doing some kind of relationship on my employee-employer relationship, so I found that topic very interesting. And the survey the question was, what makes you stick to the company, or what makes you decide to quit? This was the question. And I also participated. I also attended survey, and I was waiting for the result. For some reason, I was so eager to wait for the result. And after some days, the result was announced. And I was hoping for getting some insights into the HR related elements in it, because at that time I was managing a team. I was it was more like, after some time, some years in your career, you kind of stop doing your engineering activities, then you start managing people. Then it's a soft skills that matter. So I wanted to know about the HR practices. What are the good companies doing to keep people, to retain people, or what are companies doing to attract more people? But surprisingly, the answer was nothing related to HR. The answer was EMI. Close to 70% of the people voted for EMI. So then I realized, yeah, it's true in my case also. So I had started thinking about, started having, things like the so-called philosophical questions, like who am I kind of questions, like I was starting to have questions like, why am I working? What am I gaining from it? Why can't I quit? Why should I quit? If I quit, where should I go? Things like that. Then I realized, okay, I do have an EMI, and then I realized I am working for the EMI. I have an EMI I have to pay. So if at all if I do not had it not been the EMI part, maybe I would have stopped working, or I would have gone for a different work. So that thought was it was like a fresh thought, and I that was a very interesting thought for me. Then I, for a moment, I thought, okay, I would quit. So it was just a quick decision. I did not decide on the time, but after some time, I would quit for sure. I took that decision. So sometime in 2006 or 7, I do not exactly remember. I thought I would quit from this company. And then, but no decisions on what to do after that. Then I decided what could I do after that. Then the one obvious chance was to go to another company, but that also did not find anything attractive, because that is like, going into another corporate. Like, what is the use? Then even if I, after this many years of experience, if I go to another company, then I have to prove myself. Then there will be another challenges. I will have the same problems there. So what is the other option? I thought the other natural option was to become an entrepreneur. Like start a company, or start a consulting firm or something like that. But to be very frank, I did not want to be an entrepreneur at all. Even now, from the bottom of my heart, if you look at it, I would say I do not want to be an entrepreneur at all. I mean, the only thing that motivates me is that, once you start employing people, you are actually supporting many families, and that gives you a lot of satisfaction, which can't be explained in words. So that is the main satisfaction you get. Okay, we will not drag it too much. So that was one option I found. Then I thought, okay, is it going to work? The same kind of confusion that anyone would get. I also went through all those confusions. Like, is that not risky? Will I be able to have a financial stability? I mean, now I have a job. I am getting my paycheck every month. I have a stability. I will have this salary tick happening every month, and I can take a loan if needed. and I don't. I mean, it's okay. But if I go for a new company, I will not get paid. I will not get money. And I have to find new customers. It will be very difficult to kind of convince them. How do I make money? I will lose my safety. This is what, like any man who is about any person who is about to start an entrepreneurship. I also have the same questions. But somehow, by God's grace, or probably somebody, some guru, somebody must have told me sometime, or I must have read it somewhere, or I must have seen it in a YouTube video, or I don't remember. Luckily, I thought, that the kind of financial stability that I was on one side, which was preventing me from moving into entrepreneurship, and it was preventing me from quitting. That feeling was absolutely a false kind of feeling. It was not true. I'm not into a government job or anything. What kind of a financial stability am I talking about? What kind of a financial stability am I thinking about? Also, it's a private company. Okay, Tata is a very known firm. It's like a semi-governmental organization, but still a private company is a private company. So this so-called financial stability is not true. It's absolutely untrue. I realized it. And then all these bottlenecks seem to fade away. I mean, like the other obstacle is like, okay, I have to find new customers. How can I convince them? How can I find new customers? But surprisingly, it was exactly the same thing that I was doing while in Tata. I was finding new customers for Tata. I was struggling to convince them. I was really struggling to customers. So I was taking all these pain already. So the only difference was I was doing this for someone else. So if I work under someone, again, under someone is important. If I work with someone, okay, probably I am doing all this for someone else. If I move to entrepreneurship, or if I start my own firm, I will do it for myself, and I will do it for someone who is with me. So my family, my society, I can contribute to my society. Like I said before, if someone works with me, I can do it for their family. So that is different. To be very frank, I found it very, very, very attractive. I found it really, really rewarding to be an employer than an employee. I hated being an employee, to be very frank. The more I thought about it, the easier I was finding it to decide to quit. And then I decided, okay, I will quit. At that moment, this writing part, we'll come to the dream part very quickly. At that time, the writing did not come to my mind. I decided I would quit on 2017, and then I started working on it. It was in 2012 that I decided I would quit Tata in 2017. Purposefully I left 5 years gap there. It is in 2012 I start while I was in Germany. I started a consultant with the help of a European friend. I helped him start a company in Europe, in Bratislava, and then I learned about how things are managed when we work, when an Indian moves to Europe and work, things like that. We have to conclude this quickly, so I will shorten this. Then I worked. I learned a lot of things from that. I learned many things, and then I came back to India. And in 2017, like I had planned earlier, some few months before the actual target date, I quit Tata without finding any other job. I quit Tata even without starting a company, or even without starting to write or anything. I simply quit. I wanted to jump into the water first. I had some boat waiting for me there, but I did not move to another boat. I simply jumped into the water, and then I was swimming for some months, and then I got into a new boat, the company. I started my consultancy firm. I had done many preparatory activities while in Tata itself, and now I am proud owner and director of a company called Deputy Anywhere. We'll talk a little bit on that more later on this. You can also refer to my website for details. And then a friend of mine, Mr. Harikumar, who also happens to be our colleague. We all of us had worked with him. He invited me to be part of his company, which is Travancore Analytics. So I'm working. I'm going there also as a consultant. My role there is as a operations director of operations. I also work. Then after quitting, then we should talk about the dream. Actually, my dream, we'll come to that later. Then I realized that I have a lot of time, I have a lot of energy. Then I, after quitting, I realized what I was missing. It is like how the small children, how we give spectacles to a small children. When they have vision problem, they always have a problem. They do not really know that they have a vision problem because they haven't experienced the real vision. So probably there's a blurred vision, but they think that is the real vision. They don't realize that this is the actual. So whatever they see, the blurred vision, they see it as the actual vision. So somehow, if the parents realize that they have a problem and they take them to doctor, and then when they start wearing spectacles, they see things with better clarity. Then they realize, is it the actual vision? So like that, when I quit my job, my engineering career after 21 years, I took my engineering at the age of 21, and I left my full-time job after 21 years from there. So at the age of 42 in 2017, I'm 45 now. At the age of 40 to 20, I left my job, and then I realized what I was missing. I always wanted to be a writer. So that that kind of feeling, I really realized about it. And then it was very easy to kind of start dancing, jumping, and then start writing. It was so easy for me. I mean, I was doing something in between after in the job. For example, I was in Ushas and all. Vinish must be recollecting it. One or two things I did, but that was nothing serious. I mean, like pass by kind of things, one-off kind of things. But the real serious writing I started in 2017, and trust me, I could Vinish was mentioning about the international recognitions. All these international recognitions, they came to me in 2017 itself. I left my job in May, and I got this recognition in November 2017. Somehow I could get into All India Radio. I was writing poems for them. I started writing songs. And then there are a lot of things which we can cover later in the discussion. I've been talking a lot. And I don't know, I think I dragged this discussion into too long. Neha, I think it's time for you to start. Sorry about it. I dragged, this is what I warned you in the beginning. The moment I start telling you the stories, it will go out of my hand.
You were talking in the flow, that's why we didn't want to interrupt you. But thank you so much for telling us about your background and how you got here. What we would like to know is, now you are living your dream. So what are the changes that you have experienced in your life compared to when you were in a corporate job compared to now?
Very good, very good. I mean, this is some question that came to my mind also. I mean, like we always do a kind of an assessment. Whatever step we take, we do we recollect and we do an assessment. Now, I also made an assessment. What actually how I gained from it, and I can actually there are a lot to talk about it. We can have the whole session about it. But if you ask me to confine it in one single statement, I would say it is tremendously. I should stress on the word tremendously. It is tremendously improved the quality of my life beyond words, and I can using the engineering and management jargon again. I can quantitatively say, I can measure it. I can tell you, it has improved the quality of my life in all walks of my life. I mean, I'm getting more time with my family and my friends. The happiness level has improved a lot. I'm more healthy. I'm more healthy in my mental and the physical. I'm getting more contacts. My networking capability has improved. I'm getting recognized. I mean, even this meeting we are talking right now, even this meeting Think about it. If had I been continuing my career as just a territory manager, nobody would talk to me. Now people are listening to me. People want to learn something from me. So this is a great, it's a great opportunity to share, such life lessons and all. And also I should touch upon, apart from improving the quality of life beyond work, and also quality of life of many people. I should stress on that. Not only me, directly or indirectly, like empowering people and also like giving lessons and also entertaining people. We are like improving the quality of life of a lot of people. Earlier when I was doing a corporate job, and what I mean, was it like the employer's life or whom? So it was clear, only the employer. So now I am contributing to improving the quality of life of everyone, including me and everyone around me. And I have to touch upon the money part also. I will cross this very quickly. The money part also. I left the job with no other money, with no other job, but now I am earning much more than what I used to earn. So the way I visualize is like, if you love someone, if you love a girl, and you start taking her, she will get frightened and she will run away, and she will even run away from you. The moment you approach it with some maturity, she will come, she will also get attracted in you, and she will come back to you and say hello. Likewise, money is coming to me now and saying hello. So I mean, I'm earning much more. Money is coming from many other parts also. So the lesson, I will finish with this. The lesson is that the moment you start chasing your dreams, the overall quality of your life will improve, and that will bring money also, directly or indirectly. In many ways it will bring money, because in order to generate money, or in order for the money to reach you, you should be in a good mental, you should be in a good mental and physical state. You should be in a state to contribute, should be in a state to excel. So the moment you start taking your dream, you are ready to excel. The moment you start excelling, money comes to you. I hope I'm answered it right.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Uh, what I would like to know is, you mentioned, I mean, you work for a lot of time, and that give you financial stability. So, like as a youngster, so would you say it would be more important to stabilize ourselves in our life, or follow our dream immediately? So, what would you like to say about this?
It's a very good question. Thank you for that, Neha. Actually, this is another confusion that every dreamer is likely to have. It's a decision point. Every dreamer would be confused with. I would say, I mean, in my case, I'll explain it with my case itself. I never regretted that I did not follow my dream. Even now, when I look back, I never regret that I never regret that I stopped writing at the age of 17. Because the financial stability is also very important. Now I am able to kind of focus more on writing, partly because I have financial stability. Now I have financial stability, and now I have some kind of stability on which, so I have a platform on which I can stand, and now I can write. So if I had gone completely after my dreams, probably I would not. I would have ended up having some problems, something like that. So a wise decision would be, the question. It's easy to take a decision about whether to have financial stability or not. The answer is very clear, very straightforward. You certainly need financial stability. You cannot starve. The moment you start starving, your creativity ends. So you need to have financial stability. But the point you have to take from these two, mostly people get confused with money with financial stability. there is no limit. Like that's why I mentioned in the beginning also. I simply wanted to get a job and earn some good money. I never had an idea about how much money I would need to have a better living or something like that. You have to define it. You have to, even the term financial stability is like it's a tricky term. You have to define it. You have to know the limits. Please don't go after money just like that. Think about your financial stability, but don't just go after money. And also, if you feel like going after, if you feel like having to go for a career not your dream, please make sure that you don't kill the dreamer in you. Like I did not kill the writer in you. I just put him to sleep. I did not kill him. I just make him sleep. And likewise, when you're following like a career path or something, and if you realize that okay, it's not time to follow my dream, maybe I have to get into a career, which is true. Sometimes it's true. But then do that, but keep it somewhere inside, deep inside your mind. Keep it as a seed, kept somewhere deep inside your mind, and then after some time later in your life, it will get the right sunlight and water, and it will bud into a good plant, and then you make a plant and you make a garden, or you can even make it, and you can even make a forest out of it. It's up to you. But don't keep it for some time. Time will come when you will excel, will flourish. This is like that. So keep your dream for some time. It has to be your priority, but you have to manage the timing. You have to make a wise decision. You talk to your elders, you talk to people like us who have gone through this already. Then take a wise decision.
Yeah, thank you. So what we got from that is financial stability is important, but it's also very subjective and it keeps moving, changing from person to person. You also told us that you have to sow your dream and then it will reap into something new, and you just need to give it time. Moving on, we have a few questions from our viewers also. Tarun Kumar would like to know, how did people around you respond when you decided a career change?
It was people around me. When we talk about the career change, people around me starts with the nearest family members. It was a real shock, and also for close friends and everyone. It was a real shock because I had gone through a lot of preparations, but I was not revealing everything to everyone. So it was a real shock, but luckily they were all confident on me. They already knew that I had some other plan in mind. It was a shock, except for me, it was a shock. But like I said, no, even after switching to writing, I could quickly, luckily, I mean, like also managed a bit, but luckily I could get some recognition. And also as an entrepreneur, I was successful right from the beginning. So those apprehensions and those fears, all those things faded away quickly. But to answer the question, it was a surprise and shock for everyone except me.
Okay, thank you so much. We have three questions from Sairab. He wants to know, in a materialistic world, artists often get asked, what is the relevance of art? So, how would you like to define the relevance of art in a post COVID world right now?
Exactly. Yeah, this is good. Actually, we have been talking this COVID times. We have been talking about what are the industries that are affected a lot by this and things like that. People, people. We used to have discussion, and people tend to say airline industry, petroleum industry. But the industry which is affecting the most, there are three industries that are affected the most. That is entertainment, tourism, and sports. Out of which sports will come quickly without spectators and all. People are starting Olympics. They moved, but other things. But tourism will take a lot of time to revive. That is the last one which will revive. Entertainment will also start. But the importance of all these three are, these are the industries where a lot of money is being rolled, a lot of money is being pumped in. So let us talk about in entertainment industry. So the art in a way comes part of the entertainment industry. See, we are all human beings without, so even if we talk completely on money terms, without industry, this is nothing. You cannot survive uh, being human without this industry. Even if we talk, we have to attack it from two terms. One from an artistic point of view, also from the money point of view. So my point is, I'm attacking this question from the money point of view. But even from the money point of view, there is lot of demand for content writing at the moment. There are a lot of people are going for web series. A lot of people are asking for songs, things like that. And we need all these things to get out of the agony of this confinement, this lockdown. So there is a lot of business opportunity. All these new business that we find, everything is related to art. So even if we think about the industry and the money, I mean about the materialistic world and money, there also art plays a little or plays a major role. And even otherwise, see, we are all human beings, and see, what is the whole? It's like a philosophy question: who am I, and what are we living for? The ultimate aim of everyone is to live happily. So that is our ultimate objective. What are we living for? We are all trying to have a happy life. That's our ultimate objective. And what gives you happiness? It's nothing but art and things like that. There are people who will combine art and technology, but without music, without love, without simple emotions like love, without expressing it, without hugging, without loving everyone, without singing, without humming, you are not a human being. We need all this. This is, I think that's a bit right. And what
Okay.
I had other two.
Yes. Yes. There are two other questions. Do you think stories in the post-COVID world are going to be different?
Certainly, yes. I mean, it is natural that we are because the world is going to change. The post-COVID world ought to be different in many ways from the pre-COVID times. There are the so-called new normals, we say. If you really look at, I can give another example to explain it better. If you really see the stories of films right now, the stories have changed a lot after the invent of mobile phones. There are lot of big hit Malayalam movies, which very big hits, which we cannot reproduce now because those days there was no mobile phone, there was no way to communicate. I forgot the name of that movie, Vandanam, or which was that the hero and the heroine, they were not meeting in the climax, and there was no way to communicate. We were not picking the phone and things like that. There are a lot of things like that. So now and now, if at all the story, if I'm writing a story for a movie, if this is important, if the lack of communication is important, I naturally have to set the plot in some remote area. For example, there was a big hit movie in a few years back in Malayalam, Passenger, and they moved the location to Gavi, so that there is no range for mobile. So naturally, all these stories are like we cannot write a story without involving the mobile now. Similarly, in the post-COVID situation, the stories are going to be different. Trust me, whatever stories which were in the making, they themselves will go into a rewriting phase. In my case, also, I was actually when it was had mentioned that in the write up. I'm actually right now trying. I'm attempting for a script for a full length movie. It looks like I have to rewrite many things because the many things that I had envisioned, I had visualized in my mind, those things will lose relevance in a post-COVID scenario. The workplace, it happens in an IT industry, so the workplace is changing. So It's like there was one movie in Malayalam. It's called Orkut and Ormakut. The idea was conceived when Orkut was a big hit, but movie was released very late when Facebook was something. Many people did not even know what Orkut was. So the answer is yes. The post-COVID stories will certainly be different. They ought to be different. And as writers, we all are getting ready for a brave position. Actually, we don't know many things yet, so we are getting ready for a brave position. Many things will change.
Okay, it's 3 minutes past 5, and that's beyond our time.
Okay.
We have we'll take one more question. Balaji has a question, and he wants to know if you were completely out of writing since your engineering dates, and how long did you not write anything? Did you only start after quitting your job?
Yes, I had mentioned it once. I have a writing, serious writing. I would say serious writing. The way I am doing it right now, I must have. There was a gap of 20 years for sure. So definitely, there's a gap. But like some one-off cases happened in between. Like I was in Ushastak when I was working with Finish and all. I mean, when there is an event in the company or something, then I wrote something like a Tulal part and presented it on stage. So I don't know, I did not write anything that serious. So serious writing, I kept it out. I kept it for sleep for about 20 years.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Uh, uh, Prasadji, what would you like to leave our dreamers with? What are few points you would like to tell them?
I first of all, I would like to thank them all for spending their time with me. This is 1 hour and a few more minutes. It's very important. I hope I was able to give you some life lessons in between. My overall statement or advice or whatever you want to take it is please keep dreaming. I mean. Dreams, this is what keeps you alive. The moment you stop dreaming, you are dead. Consider as if you are dead. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you may get tired, or you may feel like, oh, this is not the right way. I mean, this will remain a dream, or this is not right what I'm doing. Your parents are forcing me to kind of take another path. And I'm confused. I don't know. Maybe it's not right to dream. I should take a different path. There will be confusion. See, all dreamers had confusion. So everybody had such situations. So everyone had gone through such a stage. So you are also going through such a stage. Please keep dreaming. Don't kill the dreams at all. If at all you feel like you will need more time to go after your dreams, let it take some time, but don't keep it aside. Just keep it aside. Don't throw it away. Or you can even write it in a diary and keep it too, and even polish it. You dream about it, and then time will certainly come when you will take it back, and then you will excel on it. There are a lot of people around it. There are a lot of inspirational people who have you have shown, you have walked ahead of you, and then there are a lot of people around you can consult, and there's a lot of things waiting. You don't really know what life has in store for you. So keep dreaming. I wish you all the best for everything that you have in mind. You can also connect with me. I will also be very happy to help you in whichever way I can.
Okay. What we got from that is don't give up on your dream no matter how long it takes. With that, we have one last question. Tarun wants to know if you know any app websites that help writers.
I am sorry, I did not get that right. Is there a website that helps writer? Is that so?
No. Do you know of any apps or websites that will help writers?
There are many actually. There are many, but I don't have a. There are a lot, but there are. I will give you some insight into it. There are very serious There are very serious applications for different types of writing. For example, if you are focusing on scripts, there are software which let you do that. You probably with some little bit of googling you are able to do that. There are a lot of YouTube channels that will help you, and also for poems and everything. There is a lot of information available in the industry, but some are expensive, some are free. At the moment, I would say I will try to look for it, and probably I can share. You can connect with me personally. I can give you it. But my overall view is don't go after all these things too much. There are a lot of information available in the net. It is important to go after them, but don't look for any particular website or app because they also have their own limitations, and there are also too many people talking, and you will sometimes get carried away. You will get too much. You will get dragged by a lot of discussions and all. So keep focused, but you will certainly get some information from the net to help you writing. It's also important, it's very important to learn from the mistakes that others did, learn from the right things that others did. So it's important to resort to applications and websites like that. There are many, even I also have some things, but I don't have any particular name to suggest now. But with some little bit of googling, I'm sure you would also find some. There certainly are a lot of apps, and also there are a lot of okay. There is one advice I can give you. Please try to, if you are active on social media, in Facebook, you try to find some good writers groups which promote writers and also promote good content, and also which promote good reviews. Not like there are some forums where people simply post their writings and praise each other and things like that. That won't do. Find some real good writing groups where there are a lot of senior people helping you, and that will definitely help you. And another one more important point is that the moment you step into social media, there you have to mold yourself to to face criticism. I can warn you that the moment you write, only some percentage of people will like what you write. So you also have to learn that we are not writing for everyone. So you have to attain that maturity also. So getting into such groups and discussions and all will give you that kind of maturity also.
Thank you, Prasadji. I think we understood that we should write for ourselves and then share it with our closest friends or family to know if it's any good. With that, I'll take the last question for today. Balaji would like to know, who is your favorite writer?
I expected this question actually. There are a lot. I think I should write. I should. It won't be good if I don't mention at least once. It's a lyricist. His name is M.D. Rajendran. It's a Malayalam lyricist. I don't know how many of you know him. He has not written much things. I mean, he is my guru in a way. Actually, he's the one who gave me this name as Kavi Prasad. But he is a poet by nature, and he also writes songs. He's the one who wrote. I mean, people from Kerala would understand. Nin Tumbu Getti Churumudil, Churumudil, and also Himashaila Saigada Romil Ninmeru, Pranay Pravahamayonu. All those things was written by him. So there are other people like MP and all those people. But I actually, though I was speaking in English, I mostly my speaking, my writing, everything is confined to Malayalam. Actually, all my lyrics and all. Sometimes I used to write in English also, but mostly essays and translation of my own words and things like that. For writers, if you ask for a favorite writer, I would say my ever-time favorite lyricist is M.D. Rajendran. I'm a great fan of him.
Okay, thank you so much, Prasadji. I think we can conclude with that. Thank you so much for spending time with us and talking to us. Over to Mr. Vinish for the conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Kavi Prasad. It was a very insightful sharing that you gave all of us. I actually captured a few points that found interesting. I liked your analogy of the rubber plantation. It takes time. It takes time. So then I also was very fascinated by your story, where you told that at a young age you realized the cost and the benefits of work, and how you helped your father in doing some work and earning some money for the family. And then I loved your story when you told where your teacher pushed you in your sixth standard to write a poem. I mean, uh, every successful person has somebody who would have pushed them initially, and your story is no different. And I was very excited to hear that story. I also was fascinated by the duality concept that you talked, where you had to balance between your career and your writing uh, side of your story. And yes, like you said, poverty, the moment that you are in poverty, your creativity gets lost. So I think that was an interesting insight that we all got. And lastly, what I noted is financial stability is important, but then we need to know how much we want. And I think this is one of the most important takeaways that I would take, because most of us think that we need lots of money to live a very happy life. And I think you have opened up our eyes, telling that yes, we need to clearly define how much we want. And with that, I think our lives will also become very more contented and more happier. So these were the the points that I noted. And I will take up the most important point that you told: keep dreaming and don't stop till achieve your dreams. So I think you gave us lots of insightful experiences and interesting thoughts that we can carry forward from this discussion. So thank you. And let me once again thank all our participants who have been with us for the last 1 hour, maybe 1 hour, 15 minutes. And thank you all. It's because of you that we get the energy to come back every week. And next week also, we have a very interesting person who is a dancer. And we'll be sharing the details soon. So thank you for joining us today. We'll meet next Tuesday, 4 o'clock. And once again, thank you, Prasad ji and Neha.
Thank you everyone. I saw all the comments. Thank you everyone.